Lesson 74 is about inserting parentheses and order of addition. Now in this problem we have -2 plus 3 minus 5 plus 7. And when we have a problem like this where we're switching back and forth between addition and subtraction, we'd have to make sure that we pay attention to our order of operations, add and subtract from left to right, and we'd have to be thinking of both adding and subtracting. Now in these problems it's oftentimes easier to insert parentheses and only add. So let's say this is -2, which it is. It's -2 in parentheses. Then we have a plus 3. So we have a plus and the 3 is positive, so we have plus 3. Minus 5 is the same thing as saying -5 if we add. So we're going to say plus -5. And we're going to put the -5 in parentheses. Adding a negative number is the same thing as subtracting. Then we're going to say plus 7. Now inserting these parentheses and only adding makes it so we don't have to think of both addition and subtraction in the same problem, and then we can just add our positive and negative numbers. So -2 plus 3, that's 1. We have 1 plus -5 plus 7 left over. Well, 1 plus -5, that must be -4. And then we get -4 plus 7, and we get our final answer. -4 plus 7, that must be equal to 3. We could box it, and we can move on to our next question. Now in order to do this, remember, we inserted the parentheses, and we're only adding. So anywhere we see a subtraction, we just add that number as a negative. Let's practice a few more. Here we have to add, and you can see there's lots of subtraction signs. So wherever there's a subtraction signs, we're just going to go ahead and we're going to add that as a negative number. So we've got -3 to begin with. Instead of saying -2, we're going to say plus -2, because -2 is the same thing as saying plus a -2, plus a -6, plus a +2. We have -7, so that's the same thing as saying plus a -7. And now we can go ahead and add. Well, -3 plus -2, that's -5. Then we have -5 plus -6. This time we're just going to work across as we go. -5 plus -6, that's -11. We get -11, then we have plus 2. -11 plus 2, well, that's -9. And then the final part, we have -9 plus -7. And that must be equal to -16. We've got our final answer. We found it by inserting those parentheses, and wherever the problem told us to subtract initially, we're really just going to add that negative number. Let's move on to our next example. Once again, we're going to add. So let's go ahead and insert our parentheses. We're going to get -3 plus -2 instead of subtracting, plus 3 plus -4 plus +5. So we can go through the same way we did the last one. -3 plus -2, that's -5. -5 plus 3, well, -5 plus 3, that must be -2. Plus -4, that must be equal to -6. And the last part of our problem is -6 plus our 5. -6 plus 5, well, we can get our final answer. Our final answer must be -1. We could box it, and then we could move on to our next question. We'll practice this some more with our lesson practice on page 235. Make sure you've got your notes complete, and I'll see you during our next class.